This image is over 2,000 years old. These two figures are not dancing. They are not performing a ceremony. They are fighting. And what they are practicing has a name that almost no one outside Korea has ever heard. You know Taekwondo. You know its kicks, its Olympic medals, its global academies on every continent. What you do not know is what came before it. What was practiced on Korean soil for 2,000 years before the first Taekwondo school ever opened. What the warriors of the three kingdoms, Goguryeo, Baekje, Silla, trained in when there were no rules, no colored belts, and no referees. Its name was Sububac, and it was far deadlier than anything that carries the Korean name today. Welcome to Martial Road, where warriors live forever. When we covered the techniques that Taekwondo removed, the strikes to the throat, the knee attacks, the forbidden combinations that turned a complete combat system into an Olympic sport, the response was clear. You wanted to go deeper. This video goes deeper, not into what Taekwondo removed, but into what existed before Taekwondo was a concept at all. Sububac is the documented ancestor of the Korean martial arts tradition. It was not a sport. It was not a ceremonial art. It was the combat training of Korean soldiers, nobles and commoners, across centuries of internal war and foreign invasion. And it has been almost entirely erased from the martial arts conversation. To understand Sububac, you need to understand the Korea that produced it. For nearly 7 centuries, the Korean peninsula was divided among 3 competing kingdoms: Goguryeo in the north, Silla in the southeast, and Baekje in the southwest. These were not peaceful neighbors. They fought each other continuously for land, for resources, for survival, while simultaneously defending against invasions from Han Dynasty China to the north, and Japan to the sea. In this world, martial training was not optional. It was not recreational. It was the difference between a kingdom that survived and one that did not. The earliest written record of Sububac appears in the Samguk Sagi, the history of the 3 kingdoms, compiled in 1145 AD from much older source documents. It describes Sububac as a practiced martial discipline with documented matches, skilled practitioners, and royal patronage. The Muyangchong tomb murals, painted in Goguryeo territory around 37 BC, show fighting postures that researchers have identified as consistent with later documented Sububac techniques. Unlike the isolated kicking art that Taekwondo became, Sububac was a complete combat system. The system was organized around 4 combat ranges, each with its own techniques. At long range, Sububac used powerful leg strikes, high kicks, knee strikes, and sweeping leg attacks. This is the element that survived most directly into modern Korean martial arts. But in Sububac, these were one range among 4, not the entire system. At mid-range, Sububac used open hand strikes, palm heels, and forearm attacks, along with rapid stepping patterns designed to control the angle of engagement. This element largely disappeared from the Korean tradition during the Joseon dynasty's long peace period. At close range, Sububac incorporated joint locks, pressure point attacks, and throws drawn from the Gwansal tradition, the broader Korean wrestling and grappling heritage. And at the shortest range of all, the range no modern Taekwondo practitioner ever trains, Sububac used headbutts, elbow strikes, and what the texts describe as Gwanjul Gong, penetrating joint attacks, strikes designed not to score points, but to break the structural integrity of an opponent's limbs. This is what separated Sububac from every descendant art that followed. It was not a kicking system with some other elements added. It was a genuinely complete combat curriculum, designed for men who would fight in armor on uneven terrain against opponents who were also trying to kill them. If Sububac has a golden age, it is the reign of King Uijong of the Goguryeo dynasty, or ruling from 1146 to 1170 AD. King Uijong organized public Sububac competitions. He selected practitioners for royal service based on their skill. He elevated Sububac from a military discipline to a spectator event. This elevation had 2 effects that pulled in opposite directions. The first effect was positive. Sububac gained status. It was documented, formalized, and celebrated. The second effect was corrosive. Under royal patronage, Sububac began to be staged. Matches became performances. The most violent techniques, the close-range joint attacks, the headbutts, the ground-level destroying strikes, were increasingly excluded from competition contexts. This is the pattern every martial art faces when it moves from battlefield to court. The performance version survives. The lethal version begins to fade. But the real destruction of Sububac did not come from royal patronage. It came from peace. In 1392, General Yishongye overthrew the Goguryeo dynasty and founded the Joseon dynasty, a Confucian state that would rule Korea for over 500 years. The warrior class, the class that had trained in Sububac for generations, was deliberately demoted in social status. Military men ranked below scholars. Physical combat training was a lower-class occupation. Under this cultural pressure, Subac's transmission fractured. The complete system, 4 ranges, complete combat curriculum, Guanjul Gong joint destruction, was never formally outlawed. It simply lost the conditions that had always sustained it. When Korean martial arts were reconstructed in the 20th century, the founders made a choice. They chose to emphasize the kicking heritage, the high, spectacular, point-scoring kicks that were uniquely Korean, that had survived most clearly from the ancient tradition, and that could be demonstrated on a global stage. This was a rational decision. It built one of the most successful martial arts institutions in history. What it did not do was reconstruct Sububac. The Korean martial arts historians who have argued this point are not attacking Taekwondo. They are recovering a history that the modernization process left behind. The question is not whether Taekwondo is a valid martial art. Of course it is. The question is whether something was lost in the translation from Sububac to the tournament ring. And the answer, when you look at 2,000 years of documented history, is yes. Something was lost, something significant. And most people who practice Korean martial arts today have never been told it existed. From 1910 to 1945, Korea was a Japanese colony. Japanese authorities promoted Japanese martial arts, judo, kendo, jujutsu, while discouraging indigenous Korean combat traditions. When liberation came in 1945, and Korean martial arts teachers began reconstructing what they had, they were working from fragments. They were building something new, from incomplete pieces of something old. An old Korean folk art called Taikon had survived the occupation, in a form that many historians believe represents a direct civilian descendant of Subac's kicking and footwork tradition. Taikon is not a fighting system in the Sububac sense. It is a competitive folk game, but its movement vocabulary, the rhythmic stepping, the flowing leg attacks, the circular footwork, preserves elements that appear in historical Sububac documentation. In 2011, UNESCO added Taikon to the representative list of intangible cultural heritage of humanity. The South Korean government's formal recognition of Taikon as distinct from Taekwondo is the clearest official acknowledgement that the Korean martial tradition contains more than one thread, and that not all of them survived intact. In recent decades, a small number of Korean martial arts researchers have attempted something unprecedented, a documentary reconstruction of Sububac from historical sources. This work is explicitly described as reconstruction, not transmission. There is no living lineage that traces directly to a Three Kingdoms era Sububac master. The chain was broken. What these practitioners are doing is scholarly archaeology expressed in movement. What they have found is consistent with everything the documents suggest. Sububac was a comprehensive combat system that the kicking arts of the 20th century inherited from only partially. The story of Sububac is not primarily a story about a lost martial art. It is a story about what happens to a martial tradition across 2,000 years of war, occupation, peace, royal patronage, and modernization. Every stage of that journey left something behind and carried something forward. The kicks survived because they were spectacular. The rest of the system fell away, not because it was inferior, but because the conditions that had sustained it were gone. 2,000 years ago, two men trained in a system that no modern Korean martial artist fully practices. Their image survived on the wall of a tomb in Goguryeo territory. The system they represented survived, partially, in the kicks of Taekwondo, the footwork of Taikon, the fragments preserved in the Muya Dobotongji, but only partially. The warriors who carried the complete Sububac curriculum into battle, trained in a system built for the world they inhabited, a world where the fight did not end at tournament range, a world where the only rule was whether you survived. That world is gone. The art that served it is nearly gone. What remains is worth understanding, both for what it tells us about the martial tradition we do have, and for what it suggests about everything less than that did not make it through. Stay strong, stay informed, subscribe to Martial Road.